Okay, so for those of you that are joining us using our Join Me webinar software, we do have a PowerPoint for today's presentation. But for those of you just joining us on the phone, you'll also have access to this PowerPoint presentation from our website, which is calvet.ca.gov/womenvets. All of our webinars that we record are available to view from our website. So we do this call, in the past, we've been doing this call on the first Monday of every month. We've now decided to do this call every other month. So the next call that we will have available for you will be in July. We're doing that so we can really improve our content and get really great guest speakers and focus more on the delivery of the webinar that we give to you and make sure it's as improved as possible. So the next calls that you guys can participate in will be in July. So with that, I'd like to do just a few housekeeping items. Please remember to mute your phone so that we can limit the feedback that people hear on the call. You can do that by pressing *6, and then you can also unmute yourself by pressing *6 again when you have a question. We'll go through the PowerPoint presentation and the discussion, and then towards the end, we'll leave about 15 minutes for Q&A. So please reserve your questions until then. If you would like to ask a question through our Join Me software, we have a chat window available, so you can also ask your question through our chat window, and we'll answer that while the webinar is going on. So today, I have two guests with me. I have John Melrose, who is the CVSO, that's the County Veteran Service Officer for Placer County. He's also a Navy veteran. I also have Susie Vinci, who also works out of the Placer County CVSO office. She is a Navy veteran, and she is an Assistant Veteran Service Officer. I think for those of you that are local to the Sacramento area, you've probably met John and Susie over and over again. They're all over the Sacramento area, Placer area, doing really good work for veterans. And then I also have my analyst out of our Women Veterans Division here, Julie Karikas, Air Force veteran, and Julie will be discussing some Social Security benefits as well with you. So, like I said, you can definitely mute your phones. You can view our recorded webinar via our Join Me software. Hopefully you're on it. You can ask a question via our chat window, and then you'll be able to access this webinar in the future. And this webinar will be ending right around 11 o'clock, so we only want to take an hour of your time today. So back in March, we had the CVSO for Solano County, Ted Pintillo, present kind of an overview of VA benefits and how to get connected with your VA benefits. And that was really focused on service-connected disability benefits. Today, we're going to go into kind of a deeper discussion about how to apply for those benefits and what they can get you, but also talk a little bit about things like aid and attendance, Social Security benefits, and how some of the aid and attendance and service-connected disability connect you with your women's health benefits. And then obviously we'll have some time for questions. If you can keep your questions to as broad as possible for information purposes. If you have a really specific question that may have some sensitive health or personal identifying information, and you're not wanting to ask it via the webinar, then we can definitely connect with you later on and get an answer to your question as soon as possible. And you can do that by emailing us at womenveterans@calvet.ca.gov. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and begin our discussion. First, I'm going to ask Susie Vinci to begin her presentation portion, and we'll forward through our webinar slides, and Susie can go ahead and introduce herself to our callers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Susie Vinci. As Lindsay has stated, I'm the Assistant Veteran Service Officer out of Placer County. I have been accredited with CDVA and AMVETS for about 9 years. CDVA just recently, but with AMVETS for about 9 years. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and begin. So the first slide talks about initiating a claim. So the first thing that we want the veterans to do is we want them to find a service officer in their area. It's going to be the best, getting them hooked up with their county service officer is going to be the best possible avenue because it cuts down on a lot of frustration. We need to make sure that the veteran is well informed on what documentation that they need to bring in, and then we set them an appointment to come in, bring their documentation in. and the service officer can go through that with the veteran and start to file the claim. Some of the required documents you might want to let your veterans know that we'll need, obviously, the DD-214s for any and all periods of service. Sometimes what people forget is we need retirement orders and retirement point statements, which the retirement point statements are for reservists. That's what shows, those are really good to use because it shows any and all periods of active duty. So it's a point for point, one for one. So if you see 365 points, you know that that veteran has spent a year on active duty. And then the NGB 22, that's for all the Guard people, Air National Guard and Army National Guard. The NGB 22 is their discharge from state service. So then we'll need copies of their service treatment records so that we can go through and kind of cruise through them and see what they've got going on and pull out any conditions or issues or that they had while on active duty and go through them with the veteran to make sure that are they still experiencing these conditions, have they rectified themselves, or what we need to do. And if there are any civilian, if the veteran has been out longer than 12 months, we'll need civilian treatment records for any issues that they want to claim. Any dependent information, so we'll need, if the veteran has dependents, we'll need all of the dependent social security numbers, as well as children's birth certificates, a marriage license for the current marriage. If the veteran has been divorced or the veteran's current spouse has been divorced, we'll need any and all divorce decrees. And then it is a possibility for the veteran to claim stepchildren. So we just need those birth certificates again as well to show the link between the spouse and the children. Any personal statements if it's necessary. So if there's some conditions and the veteran really hasn't been seen by a doctor, sometimes the spouse or family members can write statements in order to support the claim for service connection for any conditions. Any other supporting documentation that's needed to provide a link between the claim condition and the time in service, which would be statements as well, or any type of maybe possibly going through the veteran's administrative record to find a link. And then any banking information, because we know that the VA requires direct deposit. So we need to make sure. That seems to be the one thing that people forget when they come to file a claim, is that they need to bring their banking information for direct deposit purposes. And what to expect after filing your claim. So now these are just, these are not exact numbers, as you can see. It's just, these are approximations. Going through and doing this for as many years as we've been doing it, this is usually a good guideline. So within the first 90 days, the veteran should receive an initial letter from the Veterans Benefits Administration just stating, we've received your claim and we're working on it, please be patient. Usually within the first 180 to 270 days, there should be, the veteran should get contacted for their claims and pension exams. Within the first 270 to 455 days, a decision should be rendered. So please remember that these are not exact numbers, but just to be used as a guideline, so that, because the veterans always want to know, how long is this going to take? And I know that saying 24 months is a lot, but if you give them that window, that's what they're going to be focused on. If you tell them 12 months and that 12 months comes and goes, then you're going to have really upset veterans. So usually using a guideline to say 18 to 24 months from start to finish, you usually place yourself in a safe window. And so you might want to, this is how does the VA calculate your overall percentage? And so this is actually straight out of the CFR, the 38 CFR. This is VA math. So veterans always think that they have, when they add up their percentages, they always use traditional math to add up their percentages, and we know that the VA does not work that way. So the way that this works is you see the numbers on the left side of the page. That would be if you see that they go in increments, the ones across the top of the page go in increments of 10, and the ones down the left side of the page are all crazy. So what you do is you find your very first percentage, your highest percentage. If there's multiple percentages, let's just say that the veteran received a 30, a 20, and a 10. So what you're first going to do is go to the left side column and find 30. Then you're going to go to the top column and find 20 because that's the second highest, and you're going to see whatever that number is. Whatever that number is, you're going to find that number on the left-hand column, and then you're going to go to the 10% and find out whatever that number is. And if that number is between 1 and 4, the VA will round down. If that number is between 5, the second digit of that number is between 5 and 9, the VA will round up. So if the VA's calculation, let's just say it comes to 57, then that means that the veteran will be awarded 60% because they round up since it's between that 5 and 9.
If you want, this is John Melrose, the VSO from Placer County. We found a calculator at hadit.com, which is way easier, but I'm very glad that Susie showed you this because the calculator only goes out to about 10 spots, and there's very often times that you're going to have rating decisions with more than that. This shows you the real life figuring of VA percentages. It's VA math. And if you don't know this, you're going to get really confused veterans real quickly. But that's why you have VSOs to know it inside and out like Susie and I do, so that you can just say, go talk to your VSO, and we can break it down for them at that point.
So meaning if you're a veteran this is Lindsay, if you're a veteran who's filing a claim, understand that the individual percentages awarded by VA for your disability are not necessarily going to total your overall disability rating percentage, which is the final percentage you're given, which is what you would use as your service-connected rating. And that's because of the way VA does the calculation,
their math. Mm-hmm.
So we have a question on our chat window that says, can you please repeat the website? The website for the calculator is hadit.com.
Hadit.com, that's the one that I use. That's the one that is the most easy to use in my experience. There's several others out there, but hadit.com seems to have the best one that I've seen.
H-A-D.
Can you spell that?
Correct. H-A-D-I-T.
HADIT.com. Hadit.com, one word.
Thank you.
Sure. So that's interesting because I know that I've talked to veterans who have their disability rating all laid out, and I'm going, these guys can't add at all. That doesn't make any sense. Understanding that it's really because not everybody's going to be rated in increments of 10 for many reasons. So they've got this whole chart and calculator. So you can always go to the Code of Federal Regulations in Title 38 and look up the table if you wanted to see what this actually breaks out to and how you would read this. It almost looks like a cipher code from my Navy days. So it's a little confusing, guys. But just understand that, the VA is looking at this, doing this calculation not to your detriment, but to your benefit, hopefully. So I did get another comment on here in the chat window. Someone asks, well, I don't see the 100% rating on this table. So what's that about? It goes to 99.
So that's because anything between 5 and 9 is rounded up. So if you're between 95 and 99, it's rounded up to 100.
Right. So it's almost like we're missing a bottom column here that would show. Okay.
Anything from 5 to 9 is 100%.
Right. So really, on the table, the left-hand column, the highest number is 94, and then on the right-hand side of that same row is 99. Basically, if you had a 95 or higher on that left-hand column, then your overall percentage would reflect 100%. So that's the only reason that it doesn't show. So maybe they were saving some ink. We don't know.
Hello?
Yeah.
I had a question about, because if you're already at 50% and then you get added another 10%, I'm not able to see the screen, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Okay.
So what would your percentage be if you're already at 50% and then they decide to increase 10%?
So if you're at 50 and you have an additional 10%, that's going to give you a VA calculation of 55, which would equal a 60% rating for pay purposes.
Okay.
Clear as
Because
mud.
I got added 10% for something, and then when I got my letter, it said I wouldn't be added a percentage because of the 10% only equaled less than.
There has to be other, there must be other conditions that you have. So what you have to do is you have to look at, if you have a total of 6 conditions, we have to look and see where those conditions fall. So if you have a 50 and a 20 and a 10 and a 10 and a 10, it's just going to depend. That's why this, you can, if for those of you who don't see the actual PowerPoint slide, I would encourage you to go to the CDVA website and check it out. It's definitely worth your while to print these 2 pages because it will make calculating your overall percentage or the vet's overall percentage so much less complicated.
Okay.
And then you're also welcome to contact your CVSO, bring the letter in, and have them explain it to you so it's really clear.
Absolutely.
I would highly recommend doing that.
All your CVSOs have this. This is a part of the 38 CFR. This is what the VA uses. This is their regulation. This is what they use.
Here.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on.
I'm going to go ahead and continue Susie's part of the presentation, and then we'll take some of your questions that you may have about this towards the end. So next slide. Go ahead, Susie.
So benefits of a VA rating. A lot of times once you get the overall percentage, people have questions of, okay, so now what am I eligible for? So there's the actual veteran status. There's VA health care. So what I mean by VA health care, everybody automatically assumes that just because you're a veteran, you're eligible for health care, and that's not necessarily true. There are some veterans who, unless they get a service-connected disability, would otherwise not be eligible for VA health care. So once they receive this rating, they're now eligible for VA health care. There's also options for disabled veterans life insurance, but that has to be applied for within 2 years of your most recent rating decision. There's options for low-cost dental insurance through the VHA, Veterans Health Administration. There's discounted fishing license, and all of these next things they're going to differ between state to state. And so because obviously I'm in California, I used our stuff to place up on these slides, but it's going to vary from state to state. So the discounted fishing license, there's state and federal parks passes. If you're retired with 20 or more years of service and rated with a 50% or higher, then the veteran is eligible for what's called concurrent receipt. Now that is a Defense Finance and Accounting Service benefit. That is not through the VA. So that allows the veteran to collect all of their military retirement and all of their VA pay, disability pay. Dependents are eligible for the California State fee waiver, which is a huge, huge benefit. That benefit is so amazing. We're so lucky in the state of California. 100% service-connected veterans have options for reduced property taxes. Depending on your county, will depend on how much you actually get. In the state of California, one of your vehicle registrations will be waived. And so there's a disclaimer at the bottom that says information about additional benefits are available upon request. So I would encourage any of the veterans to contact their county service officers because they will have specific benefits for their state and their county. So if you're unhappy with your rating decision, what do you do? So everybody always wants to go into, quote unquote, the appeals process. That's a very timely process, and sometimes it's not necessary to start out. What you can do is you can submit additional evidence and have them reevaluate the condition or conditions. If you don't have additional evidence, you can file a notice of disagreement. That notice of disagreement has to be filed within the first 12 months of the decision letter that you received. If you file the notice of disagreement and you are provided with on this slide it says SSOC, which is the Supplemental Statement of Case. Again, that is the Supplemental Statement of Case from the VA, which is the result of the notice of disagreement. If you do not agree with that Supplemental Statement of Case, you may file a formal appeal. That appeal has to be filed within 60 days of the Statement of Case. You can file for additional conditions, secondary conditions, or for an increase of current conditions at any time. For some reason, veterans seem to think that just because you file once, that you can't file at any other time, and that's not the case. If your conditions increase in severity, whether it was 30 days from your last decision or 3 years, you can still file. You can file for an increase or secondary conditions or additional conditions at any time.
For me.
And it's important to realize, this is John again, it's important to realize that if you're unhappy with the rating that you get for a decision, say you only got 20% for your back and you think it should be 40%, that's not an appeal. That is based on the medical evidence that they have of record, and that's how they make that decision. An appeal is you are making an appeal because you feel the VA, can you speak up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you make an appeal, you feel that the VA has misapplied the law. That's an appeal. If you're going back in because you don't agree with what the VA says that your disability rating is, that can be new and material evidence, not an appeal. It's a subtle difference, but it's big.
So, yeah, so what John and Susie are saying is that you definitely want to take your decision back to your VSO to discuss your options with them, because they're going to be able to tell you what your options are. It could be a notice of disagreement for an appeal, which would mean VA misapplied the law, or it could be submitting additional evidence that you realized that was not included in your overall file that was sent to VA. And then you can always go back and as Susie mentioned, take your rating and look to increase it for secondary conditions and current conditions as well. So really rely on your VSOs. Don't let the time that you submit your claim and walk out of their office be your only connection to that office, because they can help you through every step of this process, including after you get your rating decision, if you need to appeal it or submit additional evidence.
And I'd like to emphasize that the VA is they are sticklers on timelines. So if I would say for the veteran to contact their service officer at least every 90 days just to check in and check status, so that, something doesn't get lost, or, maybe you lose that window to file a notice of disagreement, or, that would be my best recommendation. Just, a lot of times people use the term set it and forget it. So, people file their claim and they just forget it, and then, 4 years later they say, well, I filed this claim and never got anything back. So the burden of responsibility needs to lie at some point with the veteran, and that means take responsibility for your claim, and at least every 60 to 90 days, get in contact with your county office, with your VSO office, just to check the status to make sure things are coming along the way that they should be, and that you're not missing out on something.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Susie on that, because you never know, something could happen. There are enough folks in this chain of evidence and chain of responsibility where something can go wrong, something can happen. It's not unheard of. Although the VA files and awards and handles paperwork for thousands of veterans a day, it does happen. So be on top of your claim as much as possible. Absolutely. Okay.
So now we're going to be moving on to, we've kind of finished up the claims portion of it, and now we're going to be merging over to navigating women's health. First of all, again, I would route the veterans to contact their local county service officers or their VSOs to assist in applying for VA healthcare benefits, because those VSOs are going to have the knowledge on whether or not these veterans are actually eligible, and if they're not eligible, what options they have to become eligible. You can specifically request, so for women veterans, the Veterans Health Administration now has kind of like a whole health care where the women veterans can request a specific health care provider that will be not only their primary care provider, but their women's health care provider. So there's a continuous continuity of care. You don't have to go to one provider for all your primary care stuff and then have to go to a whole nother provider for your women's health. You can get it, it's all done one-stop shopping. And this is fairly new, and maybe a lot of the outside healthcare facilities may not have put that out, but that is an option available. And you want to find out who the Women's Healthcare Coordinator is in your VHA facility. You need to make sure that you find out who that person is, because they can put you in contact with a lot of intimate options available that aren't out there for the regular VA public, because there's a lot of things that are specific just for women's health that aren't going to be put out because it's not necessary, since the men don't really necessarily need it.
And if you would like a list or would like to know who your Women Veteran Program Manager is at your local VA, we have that list and those contact information points, so we'd be happy to connect you with those folks. Just email us, womenveterans@calvet.ca.gov. Let us know what your facility is or your CBOC that you go to, and we can give you the program manager information. That's excellent information about primary care and women's health, because for a long time I know that we had firsthand experience with that as an issue. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so can you guys talk just briefly, Julene and I were discussing this before you got here. We'd mentioned that not all veterans are going to qualify for VA healthcare. We know this.
Right.
That's a big gap in service that every service provider is trying to address. But Julene's gotten a lot of calls lately from women veterans who have contacted our office who don't realize they are eligible for VA healthcare, because people don't know that there are several categories of healthcare eligibility.
Correct.
So can you just briefly touch on those? What would qualify somebody, potentially? Understanding that someone needs to go to a VA hospital to get that information, first and foremost.
So first of all, let me just let you know that the VA hospitals have an obligation. If a veteran comes into the emergency room or an urgent center, the VA has an obligation to see that person. As a humanitarian. If they don't know if the VA is unaware of the eligibility of the veteran, that veteran facility has an obligation under humanitarian to see that veteran.
No matter what. Yeah.
There may not be a continuum of care, but they do have to get seen at that point. So with that said, there are different levels of eligibility, and so the most generic and overall one is the veteran has to have at least 2 years of active duty. Now, there's different periods for war-era veterans, and it gets very convoluted. So like I said, I would encourage you to contact your service officer, because the service officer is going to have those minute details, because it gets very complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit here and talk for 20, 30 minutes about the different specifics in eligibility. But just overall, a good rule of thumb is the veteran needs to have a minimum of 2 years of active duty and needs to have a good discharge. So if there's an other than honorable, it doesn't mean that they're not qualified, but the VA has to make a determination. And while the VA is making a determination, they do have to provide care for that veteran. There is a Veterans Health Administration regulation for that, and I do have that, so I can make sure that I get that to Lindsay, and she can put it on the website for those who are having a difficult time with those other than honorable discharges and getting care for those veterans.
Wonderful.
So overall, this is John, for overall when it comes to hospital care, there's 8 priority groups. They're broken down on the VA's website. It can be broken down economically. It can be broken down service connection-wise, whatever you're awarded for. It all comes down to your DD-214, going into the hospital, talking to their eligibility clerks, and having it done by the people who do it. The VSOs do a tremendous job of pre-screening them before a lot of folks go to the hospital. So again, use the CVSO, use their expertise. But if you've ever been denied service in the past, revisit it. Anytime there's a major change in your environment, revisit it, because they change constantly. And keeping up with it is difficult for us who do it as a profession. For JQ veteran who's doing nothing more than living their life, it can be a little overwhelming. So if you've been denied outright once, outstanding. Let's go back and look at it again.
Yeah, understand that I think the point is that you may qualify for VA healthcare at different points in your life, 1, and 2, just because you don't think you fit the criteria for eligibility, don't prohibit yourself from going in and asking that question, either at your VA facility, your healthcare facility, or from your county VSO. Do that because there are so many different categories under which you may qualify for VA healthcare. And obviously when you get a service-connected disability, that opens up that much more. It's very important to know that because it's a great opportunity to get your healthcare needs met. And we know that as women, we don't necessarily put our own healthcare needs forward as a priority, and we need to. Okay, so this is great information because this really helps you understand a little bit more about how some of these benefits are connected. You know, there's different administrations, the Veterans Benefit Administration and the Veterans Healthcare Administration, but they're intricately connected in terms of what you qualify for benefits-wise.
And so the next topic would be what are some of the women's health services? What does the Veterans Health Administration, Women's Health Services, what do they provide? What do I get out of them? What does it mean to me as a female veteran? So they offer primary care, they offer nutrition, pharmacy, mental health, urogynecology, mammography, and a robust of women's healthcare social work programs, along with community outreach activities and telehealth services. And they do, one of the biggest questions, I took a poll and asked some women, you know, what is your main concern with women's health? And the one thing that kept coming back was contraception. Does the VA offer contraception? Absolutely. Yes. They absolutely offer contraception. As a matter of fact, not to get too detailed, but in women's health, they actually have condoms in the bathroom that you can take at free will.
Yeah. So, and then to clarify that, in terms of your reproductive health, certainly they offer a lot of the screening services, pap smears, gynecology services, but contraception and family planning specific, they offer the contraception services. If you are a patient there and you're talking about having a family, they'll even give you prenatal vitamins and some literature on pregnancy. And then, although they don't handle the OBGYN specific kind of baby pregnancy issues, they'll refer you to outpatients or to an outside provider for that. And obviously, you're not going to deliver a baby in a VA hospital. However, they'll start you down that road for information in the prenatal vitamins. Now, they offer the contraception, but VA does not offer abortion services or abortion counseling. That is not something that's available through VA. So that's kind of what's available to women at the VA healthcare services. So this is kind of a slide that's next up for those of you that can see it with a lot of numbers. For those of you that are not on the phone or that are not on the webinar and just on the phone, Susie can kind of walk us through what this is.
So the next slide, and what I'm going to be talking about next, it's just some basic overall information. It's the change in the population in women's healthcare. And this is for the Northern California healthcare system because that's what I had access to. So it's the fiscal year trend workload growth for the Northern California healthcare system. So for fiscal year 2011, there was 10,840 women enrolled in the Northern California healthcare system. In fiscal year 2012, there was a 10,843. So from 2011 to 2012, it only increased by 3 women. For fiscal year 13, we jumped up to 11,527 women. And so that's the trend where more women were starting to be released from active duty. So they were starting to downsize and people were starting to be released from active duty. So we can kind of see that trend. For fiscal year 2014, it went to 11,561 women. So the next is the age group with the highest number of enrolled veterans is the age group of 45 to 60. The second highest age group of women veterans enrolled is 30 to 44.
Really quick, Susie, I'm going to interrupt you. Folks, can you please mute your phones again? Just make sure that you're pressing *6 to mute yourself. We're getting some feedback. Thank you. Doesn't sound like we're there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mute everybody. It's going to be in presentation mode, and I'll unmute you once we're ready for some questions, okay?
I would have. Eddie told me.
Okay, go ahead, Susie.
Okay, so the third highest age group of female veterans enrolled is 65 to 85. And then the fourth is under 29 years old, and the fifth is over 85. So, and of those, the OEF, OIF, OND veterans, they only make up 1% of the women veterans patient population. So that's a pretty alarming number, significantly low, if you ask me. So I think we all need to ask the question, how do we reach those female veterans? How do we reach those OEF, OIF, OND veterans? And that's something I think that each one of us need to take personal responsibility for to make sure we get out there and contact those female veterans.
Yeah, so ladies, for those of you that are women veterans and you're here maybe just for information about your own personal claim or benefits, just make sure you're asking other women you know, have you served in the military? Try and get those women connected and, out of the, the goodness of your heart and friendship and to help out a fellow veteran, try and get them connected to these great benefits because you really don't know if people are even aware of it until you ask that question, and so many are not. What this is really showing is that we just don't have enough women veterans in the VA healthcare system, and where that really starts is women filing claims for benefits and women accessing their benefits first through a local VSO or going directly to their VA healthcare facility. The more of us that use these benefits, the better they're going to be for us, the more improved they're going to be for us. They're only going to get better if we continue to use them in greater numbers. So that's really important. So please ask your friends, even if they're not an OEF, OIF veteran, or you would suspect they're not of that age group, ask a woman you know that is maybe in an older age group. You never know if she served in the military. So just keep that in mind. We want to connect as many people as possible with their benefits because it's so great to have these available to us. Okay, next slide. Okay, a few things.
So this is a huge topic. Being a female service officer and one of very few in the Northern California area, let alone the state of California, I get people referred to me at an alarming and overwhelming number. So PTSD and MST, post-traumatic stress disorder and military sexual trauma services. So the local VA healthcare facility has PTSD and MST counseling and services available. There's also the local vet centers offer PTSD and MST counseling as well. And so I would encourage your veterans and all the veterans to contact their local county service officer or their local women's health office, their women's health coordinator, to get them in touch with those benefits. Those are some huge, counseling on the outside is extremely expensive. And the VA offers these benefits, and they're very good. So I would encourage you, if you have veterans or for you female veterans out there, that, and please don't discount the fact that even though you didn't report something, if you didn't report it, please don't think that you can't get seen for it. You can absolutely be seen. Reporting it has nothing to do with the fact that it actually happened. So please know that if there was anything that ever happened to you in service, any type of violation at all, whether it be unwanted advances, unwanted physical advances, verbal advances, anything like that, you need to get into your counseling. And that counseling is absolutely available to you, and you can file for service-connected benefits for that.
Absolutely.
So the next thing would be, how do I make an appointment? How do I get in touch with my women's health care benefits? So first of all, if you've filed your application and you know that you're eligible, you need to contact your local women's health care clinic directly. You don't have to go through the general appointment line. You can contact that women's health care clinic directly, and they will set an appointment for you concerning your health care needs, your women's health care needs. So they'll make the referrals for your mammograms. They'll set up your annual women's appointment. So the annual Pap smear appointment. I can't speak for the other healthcare facilities. I can only speak for Mather because that's where me personally I use them, and they're really good. I don't have to call and make the appointment. They call me and tell me it's time. So I just need to call them back and set the appointment, but they'll let me know when it's time. You can request a female doctor, and it's going to vary based on whether or not they have the female doctors. If they have the female doctors, you can request for a female doctor, and that request will absolutely be honored. Absolutely be honored. The VA also provides an option of having like I said before at the beginning of this discussion, you can have your primary care doctor be your women's health doctor. They have service providers doctors put in place that not only do they do your primary care, so your general health, but they also do your women's health, so that you don't have to go to a complete separate doctor to get your women's health care needs taken care of, because sometimes that's an issue. The appointments are usually, when you call to get your appointment set up, you can usually get in for an appointment within 30 days, just as a guide. Please don't, it's not set in stone, but that's just to be used as a guide. Usually they'll get you in within 30 days, and then your appointment durations are usually about 30 minutes long.
Wonderful. Okay, now John Melrose is going to talk a little bit about aid and attendance and VA pension and give some clarifying information about this benefit.
Hello, everyone. This is John. I'll just briefly touch on VA non-service connected pension. There's 67 versions of aid and attendance in the VA systems. So when someone asks about aid and attendance, the first thing we need to find out is which one. Most of the time, it's non-service connected pension. It's supplemental income for low-income, low-net-worth individuals. There is a service requirement and a wartime requirement. Keyword there is wartime, not war place. So if you were in the military 1975 to 1980, and you happen to be in Germany, but 1975 is the tail end of Vietnam, so you may be eligible for non-service connected pension.
Oh, 1 second. It looks like we're having issues. People are unable to hear our phone. So let me go ahead and see if I can unmute everybody to make sure we're not having any problems with our connection. 1 second. Okay. No, it's I think it's an issue with the overall sound. So let me unmute people. Okay. Okay, can somebody chime in on the phone and see if you can hear us? Okay. Okay, can you guys hear us now? Anybody? Okay. So viewer 16 says, yes, you can hear us. All right, can somebody speak up on the phone really quick so we know you can hear us? Okay, you may have to... Oh,
Can you hear me?
I can, thank you so much.
Okay, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, folks, well, I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay.
I'm going to mute out.
Oh,
Okay.
if you can't hear us, then you may want to try and call back in. Hang up and call back in if you're not hearing us. Otherwise, you can unmute your phones using *6. Just make sure that there's no feedback on your end. That's why we had to mute everybody. So